Well, folks, welcome to the Noble Man Podcast. I'm glad to be back with you. This is Mike Young, the founder of Noble Warriors, and I am thankful to have as my guest today, Tim Brown. Tim Brown has been a long-term friend of Stacy and myself, but has also been a long-term friend and fan and supporter of Noble Warriors. The good news is he is on staff now. He's a full-time guy at Noble Warriors. And so welcome, Tim. And why don't you tell us about some of the history of how you got connected with Stacy and us and Noble Warriors over the years?
Yeah, so my history goes back not one decade, not two decades, but three decades. Back in the late 80s when I was attending University of Virginia Tech and was active in a campus ministry there, and Stacy was actually active in it at that point in time, and so that's where I first met Stacy, and you came along sometime later through some divine appointments, we'll call them. And so the first time I laid eyes on you was when she was laying eyes on you at the altar. And so my wife and I got invited to your wedding, and so that was the first time that we knew about the Mike and Stacy team that was coming together. So and it's interesting, Stacy's first job in the Richmond area was working for a CPA firm, and I worked in the internal audit of the client that she was there. So soon after you got married, she was around me in that regard. So and then when you started the ministry back in 2005, had the opportunity to be one of your initial prayer supporters, helping you get the ministry going, and also being a financial supporter. And then most recently came on as a board member, and then it's progressed to now where I'm here as an employee. So, yeah.
Gotta love how that all works. A lot of folks will say that if you get too close to this ministry, you'll get sucked in. And so that's exactly what happened to Tim. Tim got sucked into the vortex that is Noble Warriors. And I'm so thankful for that. What makes this interesting to me is, and we'll talk about this, but we are wired quite differently. Tim comes from a financial services background and a compliance background. He's a CPA. And so I tell folks that he has a business mind and a ministry heart. And so he's bringing those skills and that wiring to bear at Noble Warriors. And so we just approach things differently. And so you would agree with that, wouldn't you, Tim?
I would agree, yeah. So I spent 34 years working for large financial services companies. And if people ask me what did I do, I basically told them what was wrong with their companies. I was paid to work in the audit, risk, or compliance space, and to identify if things were working correctly or not working correctly. So, yeah, so we do approach things very differently as a result of our backgrounds. So,
but you know what, I would say that. Tim is an answer to prayer. As a matter of fact, Stacy and I were talking just recently at dinner time, and she was recounting, reading through her Bible and seeing there was a particular psalm, and I don't remember what that psalm was, but in 2017, she wrote a date down, and she said, I was praying this, and I know that Mike is overwhelmed and really needs some help, and so she was praying for me then. Then she prayed again through that psalm in 2018, and then again, I think it was in 2021. And so we have been aware of the fact that I was, to put it in football terms, I had outkicked my coverage in terms of my ability to keep up with all the chaos I create from time to time, is because I'm a relational guy. I really want to invest in people and be connected with folks. And so the operations and the structure of how you run a business or a ministry day to day is not something that comes natural to me. I was doing some of that, but honestly not doing it well, and our efficiency was affected by that. And so Tim has come in with a completely different perspective, different skill set, and is bringing some structure. And so one of the things that I thought would be kind of fun to ask Tim here to share with you guys is, hey, what are some of the things that you came in and you said, holy cow, this is a mess. We got to work on this. And I haven't prepped Tim on all of these questions I'm going to ask. So Tim, give us a list of a couple of the things that you came in and said, boy, we got to work on this.
Well, one of the first things I realized was it wasn't clear which bathroom I should use. Was it the bathroom on the left, or was it the bathroom on the right? And 2 bathrooms here, and so I quickly clarified which one that should be, and took some measures to brighten that up and to make it very clear as far as which toilets the men should be going into and which ones the women should be going into. So
and so just to clear up that little riddle right there, when you come in, there's a sign on the door, but there is a blue light in the men's toilet and a pink light in the women's toilet. So you'll want to make a little deviation on your tour of Midlothian next time you're coming through and visit the Noble Warriors office to see how that all turned out. So.
Yeah, we do have some lovely toilet lights from Amazon that brighten up the ambiance there.
That's right.
I think the other thing is realizing that it's a ministry that is approaching 20 years old, and so with that, there's a lot of history that's been done, a lot of goodwill that's been built, and so. Recognizing that and making sure that we maintain that, but also realizing there are opportunities for us to look at things from a different lens and try to figure out, how do we tweak or remodel or make some changes to that. So, we've done a few things as far as we went through conference season. There were some tweaks that we made, as far as the flow of conferences, and there's other things that we're doing as we move forward, through our time together here.
Yeah, Tim is being very kind, but I'll give you an example of something that is pretty much driving him crazy. When I save files, I just save them wherever it makes sense to me at that moment. And so he is looking all over the place from time to time for some files and is working on like organizing files, getting things in places where we can find them. He asked me questions about, okay, give me the history of this aspect of the ministry. Tell me how we got to where we are. And I'm just so thankful for that because, again, my focus has been a desire to be out talking to the pastors, investing in the men, leading groups, doing workshops. And I've done some of that. But, folks, what's going to happen and what is already happening with Tim here is that I have more freedom and more flexibility to be out doing the work that God has set aside for the ministry of Noble Warriors. And that's a huge blessing to me. I think it's a kingdom advantage that that Tim's presence brings here. I am so thankful that when things come in of an operational nature, I'm able to hand those off to him. He can run with those so that I can be outwardly focused. And folks, many of you who are listening to this are part of the reason that's happening. God has been faithful to us over these almost 20 years and shown us a lot of favor in terms of relationships. And as the ministry has grown, we just have not been able to keep up with all of those relationships and those increasing opportunities. And so Tim is working on structures and systems that will allow us to be more efficient in our operational responsibilities, being better stewards of what's been entrusted to us so that we can serve more churches and see more men discipled to walk with Christ and lead their families well. So anything that you think of otherwise in there, Tim?
No, I think again, it's a privilege to get to sort of pull the cover back and be a part of the ministry from a different perspective at this point in my career, and just thankful to be here, thankful to be a part of the team and help push forward and just allow God to use the opportunities that are presented to us and to try to figure out how can we reach more churches, reach more men, make a difference. And a lot of this is the differences that we are not going to see in our lifetime. We are planting seeds that mighty oaks will grow up, in the future, and folks can sit under those trees with lots of shade. And so we're thankful to be a part of that. So.
Oh, that's a fantastic analogy, because we are. As a matter of fact, there's a guy where some of the work that we're doing at Southeastern, investing in future pastors and leaders. One of the guys there he said, you're not going to be able to see the results of these investments in the near term. It's not going to be something where you'll see a return on investment quickly. But if you ask the question 10 years from now, what has been the impact of investing in these young men who are training for the pastorate? as they're in seminary, and helping them understand biblical manhood for themselves, and helping them understand how to lead in developing men in their local churches, wherever God's assigned them. In 10 years, we will, by that point, see much of that, the fruit of that investment.
Yep.
And so we're thankful for that. Tim, you've seen the Southeastern experience there with some of the students. What was your reaction to some of those things?
Yeah, I had the opportunity last fall to go down and spend a day and a half with you, sort of put eyes on the situation there at the experience there at Southeastern, and it was just neat to be able to hang with folks that are early on in their careers and their ministries, and just hearing the seeds being planted as far as them being intentional and how they're going to reach men as they go throughout their ministry careers. And it was a great opportunity to see how they responded to the work that Mike has done in building those relationships, and it's been neat to see some of the stories that have come out from that strategic investment that we've made down there.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one of those stories that is developing even now. There's a young man from Canada, actually, who's going to seminary in Wake Forest at Southeastern Seminary. He was in our Point Man group going through the book Point Man last fall, and started telling some buddies of his about it up in Canada. And so a couple of those guys read the book, and then some other guys said, hey, can you help us go through this? And so Mike DeYoung is back up in Canada for the summer with his family. His wife just had their fourth child, and he's leading a group of about 40 Canadian men through the book Point Man, understanding how a man can lead his family. That's Steve Farrar's classic book on what it looks like for a man to walk with Jesus and lead his family and invest in the next generation well. And so that's an example where a seed bore fruit quickly. Seeds that were planted in North Carolina are producing fruit in Canada right now, which just blows my mind. And we want to see more of that. And so that's what we're going to continue to lean into as we prepare for conference season next year, and even some events this fall where we're going to have a huge amount of visibility. So, Tim, one of the things that happened with us, you were overseas for a period of time because you have an affinity to the country of Kazakhstan. So you might tell a little bit about that. But you came back from Kazakhstan right as COVID was heating up, and you and I met about 3 or 4 years ago, and then we read a book together called Rocket Fuel. So talk through a little bit of that whole story about how we connected at that point in our lives and ministry experiences.
Yeah, we had the opportunity. My wife and I had the opportunity to put a pause on our professional careers and make a decision to go back to a part of the world that is very special to us, and that's through an adoption experience that we had over 24 years ago when we adopted our son. And we were over there with the intentions of being there for a 2-year time period, and COVID, really brought us home earlier than expected, so that we could tend to some family needs that were pressing at that point in time, and came back and had high hopes of sort of plugging back into the world and the space that I was in. And God had a different plan, and that didn't work out. And so it was a period of time of sort of trusting Him as far as what the next steps were, walking through a period of some uncertainty and fog, and just praying through that. But yeah, you and I had met at a Panera, and you said, "Hey, here's a book that you need to read," or something to that regard. And so the book was called Rocket Fuel, and it talks about two individuals sort of coming together to help make an organization move farther along. And the reality is that those individuals are very different in their ways of thinking and their approaches and their just the way that they look at problems that are presented to them. And so, one is a visionary and is very outgoing and just trying to come up with ideas that they haven't thought about in the past, and push those ideas and see where they go. And the other person is sort of behind the scenes, sort of catching all those ideas and saying, "This is a good one. That's a bad one. This is a good one. Maybe slow down a little bit." And so that's we read through that book at that point in time. We had some conversations, and timing just wasn't right at that period. And God had another season of work for me and was able to walk through that season. But then it became pretty clear about a year ago that it was time for doing something different in the I'll call it the fourth quarter of my work career. So
yeah. Well, I appreciated so much what we learned. That Rocket Fuel book is a secular book, but man, it was enlightening to me, and quite honestly made me think about a number of biblical characters, Bible guys, men in the Bible who had some help to accomplish what God had given them to do. I think about Moses needed Aaron and Hur, and Jonathan had an armor bearer, and David had mighty men. Paul wanted John Mark to be near him because he was valuable. And I don't in any way fancy myself as those key guys, but man, the idea of partnership, having someone to go into battle with me that sees the world differently, thinks differently, has been a gift, and will continue to be, is my expectation. I'm so thankful for the good ideas, the strategies that Tim is bringing to the table that are going to help us to be more efficient and effective with conferences. As a matter of fact, one of the other analogies that I've used is there's a guy that lives across the street from us in our neighborhood, and he and his brother build race cars. And so they work on the race car during the week, and they race it on the weekend, and then they tear it all up, and then they have to start over again. And so part of what I see is I've been working on the race car and driving the Noble Warriors race car for quite a while without a crew chief. And so Tim is bringing our staff together. He's smoothing out some of the rough spots in our timelines, the way we communicate with folks. He's simplifying things, and all of that is now, I will tell you, there are parts of it that are uncomfortable. I've told folks that we're killing some sacred cows around here, and I've been eating sacred cow steak for a while, but that's part of what I needed, and it's part of what this ministry needed. I also liken this to a season of pruning, and so the dead branches are being cut off, but then some of the branches that were fruitful are being pruned so that they can become more fruitful. A prime example of that, many of you receive our monthly partner letter, and I kind of hate to see us not do that. We've been doing it for years, but for the sake of our staff and with recognition that the future impact of this ministry is not in writing a monthly letter, but in developing online resources and coaching and focusing our attention to reaching more churches, we've restructured how we're using some of our staff resources so that we can more effectively invest in churches. And that's been under Tim's leadership. And so just thankful for the clarity that he's bringing with those things and his willingness to say, Mike, slow down. This is not this is not in the best interest of the ministry. And ultimately, some of this that he's changing and bringing his wisdom to is not in the best interest of Mike and Stacy either, because we can run to the point that we're not healthy. And so I'm thankful for that. You want to speak to any of the other cows that you've killed or anything, Tim, as we go along here?
Any of the other cows that we've killed? No, I think, part of this was, walking into a situation that is mature to a certain point and just sort of understanding, okay, one part of it's understanding where are the sacred cows, and sort of, observing that and then carefully, making those recommendations within at the right time and saying, maybe there's different ways that we could look at this, or, one of the, I like to do a little bit of research and benchmark ourselves against other ministries, and so there's ways of doing that, and just sort of saying, these are the ways that they're communicating, or the way that they're executing different programs, and sort of does it fit into what we're doing. I'm one that cannot have 20 different plates spinning at a point in time. I could probably put things into a 3x3 matrix, and have nine different buckets of different things going at different speeds or whatnot. And so that's sort of the way that I operate. But again, we are strategically making changes where we need to make changes. So
yeah, and again, this is facilitating greater visibility and more exposure. Tim and I, just to give you a couple of for instances, Tim and I traveled to Indianapolis for the Southern Baptist, the annual meeting of the Southern Baptist Convention just last month, and that was enlightening because we find that more and more churches in the world of Baptists are asking for support and resources related to men's discipleship, and so we're leaning into that and learning about how we can serve more churches in that space. Our state convention is hosting a rural pastors conference for pastors of small churches later in the summer in August, and we're going to be a visible presence there. We're going to take the trailer, the Noble Warriors trailer, and do a tailgate lunch for the pastors there and be able to talk with pastors. Many of the pastors in small churches desperately need help in leadership. And so we'll be able to encourage them to invest in men, invest in developing a few men to help you lead in the local church. So that'll be our message as we get a chance to talk to some rural pastors. And then later in the summer, in September, Southeastern Seminary is hosting an expositional preaching conference. We're going to be a major sponsor for that, have some visibility there. And that's going to be another opportunity for us to talk to preaching pastors about it. When you're preaching, are you preaching with men on your mind? Are you investing in the men in your congregation as you have an opportunity with the preaching moment on Sunday morning or whenever that takes place? And there are other opportunities on the horizon for us to get in front of pastors and men's ministry leaders. We're going to start a monthly Zoom call for men's ministry leaders and pastors who want to talk more about men's discipleship. We're going to launch an online course here shortly about the keys for effective men's discipleship. And so some of these initiatives are, the thought has been in germ form for a while, but we're able to see them germinate and hopefully produce fruit quickly because Tim is with us. We can move those things forward. So those are huge wins. Any comments on those things,
Tim?
I
was just going to say, so back to that time that we spent traveling from Richmond to Indianapolis, is where that event was. Was very fruitful as far as we could have deeper conversations on, again, some of the history of things. But also on our return trip, we had the opportunity to actually put into practice let's go minister to a small church. And we did that, and we were pleasantly surprised with a good turnout and new introductions to people that were, maybe aware of the ministry, maybe not aware of the ministry, but really just providing an opportunity for them to, think through the ways that they're reaching men in their context, and maybe some different ways of doing that going forward. So that was a valuable time that we had together, and so enjoyed that. Yeah.
Well, and he said that he didn't say the key thing there, and that is that we drove from Richmond to Indianapolis, and he drove the entire way because Tim actually secured the rental car. That was a wonderful piece of this. I didn't worry about any of that. And then he was the only one who was on the driving permission list, and so I got to sit over there and dream up ideas while he was driving. But we did have a great time. We learned a lot about each other. And folks, I just want to share with you that man, I believe the future of Noble Warriors is just off the charts. The opportunity for us to serve more churches and see more men equipped and encouraged and resourced to walk with Jesus and to lead their families well, to love their wives well, to invest in a healthy next generation. The opportunity is just infinite. And our culture right now is wrestling with a lot of questions regarding manhood. As a matter of fact, I'm reading a book right now titled Boy Mom, and it's by a feminist author who has 3 sons, and she's trying to figure out, how do I raise sons as a feminist mother in a world that is not kind to young boys? Mm-hmm. And so fascinating what even the secular world is asking about manhood, and we get to step into that And folks, wherever you are, whatever role you play in the ministry of Noble Warriors, as a listener to this podcast, you're stepping into that with us. If you're a pastor in a local church, man, what are you doing to prioritize men's discipleship? If you're a men's ministry leader or a small group leader or a dad, what work are you doing, and how can we serve you as you invest in some more men? We often say that our target audience is those faithful men who are willing to teach others also, from 2 Timothy 2:2. And so that's what we're all about. Anything else, Tim? And I'll finish up here in just a moment.
No, I think it's again, it's been a great experience joining the team here, and approaching getting 6 months under my belt, and excited about the things that we've got coming up, and some of the things that you had mentioned, looking ahead to conference season going forward. Looking forward to just what other opportunities may present themselves to us that we can partner with those organizations or entities or whoever they may be, and it's as we joke, it's a great adventure that we're on, and we're glad to be a part of it. Glad to be riding side by side with each other. Each day is a new adventure with a new twist and turn, and we just sort of roll with it. So thankful
absolutely
to be here. So
it's a crazy adventure, and I will say that part of what's happening is we every day is different, and we hear things about what the Lord is doing, and so it's really cool. I'm going to tell you a story in just a moment that came to us in Indianapolis from a pastor, but before I do that, I want to make mention of this fact. You're maybe listening to this conversation and thinking, hey, I need some of what you're talking about at our church. And so, man, check out the Noble Warriors website. There are 4 key areas. Lead yourself. Man, if we're going to do well with anything, we have to do battle with our own flesh first. So there's a section of our website called Lead Yourself. Then there's a section about leading a family. So if God has entrusted to you a family that you are leading, a wife and or kids, or even ministering to your parents, guys, read this section. Look for blog posts and podcasts about leading a family. Lead a small group. We're trying to encourage men who are leading small groups with resources and stories and assets to help with that. And then lead a church. If you're a pastor or a men's ministry leader, there's an entire section of our website that's dedicated to resourcing and encouraging you in the work of being a champion for men in the local church. So there may be resources there that can help you. And then if you're going to hear stories. You heard about Mike DeYoung, the Canadian seminary student. I'm getting ready to tell you about a pastor from Charlottesville. Folks, if you go to the updates page on our new website, you can read the stories of what God is doing and has done in the life of Noble Warriors and the results that we're seeing. And so one of those stories, and I'll finish with this, we were in Indianapolis standing in the hallway, and I struck up a conversation with a pastor from Virginia. His name is Rob Pochek. He's in Charlottesville, and we're hopeful to have him on a podcast soon. But he said, hey, Mike, I just wanted to let you know, sometimes you don't ever get feedback about how when you lead these workshops and you do these sorts of things, what happens in the local church. And I just wanted to tell you that something that you said in a workshop for pastors in Waynesboro last fall resonated with me. I prayed over that. I wrestled with it. I went back to my church, and I started what we call BAM ministry. And he said, the thing that you said that caught my attention was that God can only use boys to make men. The raw material for building men is little boys, contrary to what our culture may teach. Mm-hmm. And so he said, I went home and shut down what we were doing typically for our monthly men's meeting, and we do a monthly breakfast now. And he said, I am teaching, and I've invited the men to bring their sons, and we talk about what it looks like to become men and for fathers to invest in their sons as they become men. They're teaching through a book by Patrick Morley called When God Makes Men. And he said, like I said, we call it BAM, Build a Man Breakfast is what they're doing. And so, man, there's some fruit right there, and so we're excited to report those things to you. There's going to be more of that, I am confident, because Tim is bringing a lot of clarity and structure to the ministry. He's helping us be more effective and more efficient. And folks, bottom line is that honors the Lord. The Lord is excellent. His nature is excellence, and so Tim is bringing a level of excellence to the ministry of Noble Warriors that is allowing us to be more effective and better stewards as we serve churches across Virginia and beyond. So, Tim, thanks for joining us. Appreciate your time.
Yep, my pleasure.
And I am glad that you're here. I look forward for more and more folks to meet you as we keep working through the opportunities that Noble Warriors has for visibility and service. And folks, would you continue to turn into the Noble Warriors podcast? There are going to be more and more great guests as we ramp up through the summer and the fall. We've got some great things in store. Looking forward to equipping and encouraging you as you lead yourself to step away from Satan's temptations and trials in your life and move toward the Lord, but also to lead your family well, to lead your small group well, to lead the church well. So God bless you, men. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks so much.